Hey everyone, welcome back to Citywide Blackout, your home for music, movies, and more. I'm your host, Max Bowen. Now, I've known Rhode Island author Christopher Paniccia for years, so it's a welcome sight to have him back on the show. A few years ago, he launched a new fantasy series, and we talk about the newest novel, The Dark Kingdom. Chris takes us through the story, which centers on a young man who learns of his family's secret, one that changes his life forever. I get to welcome back a good pal, a guy I've known for a long time, author Christopher Paniccia joins me to talk about his 6 million projects all going on at once. Chris, welcome back to the show, man. It's great to have you here.
Thanks, Max. As always, it's great to see you, great to talk with you. As Max said, we've known each other for quite some time now, and it's always excellent to be able to see each other and be able to talk about all the different projects that I do have on the horizon. Being my latest project is Dark Kingdom, a new upcoming fantasy book. And Max was kind enough to offer me some time to be able to talk about that this evening.
Mm-hmm. And this is the third book in your Haven series, which you released, I think, 2 or 3 years ago. For those of us who aren't familiar, walk us through the story of the Haven series.
Well, the Haven series came about as a result of... my grandfather was a naval officer in World War II, and when he passed away, he had left me his footlocker. And inside the footlocker was all different kinds of memorabilia from World War II, and he had collected patches and different things from Allied soldiers and even German soldiers and stuff that he had come into contact with. So he had all these different things in the footlocker. And I'm going through it, just kind of feeling sentimental about my grandfather. And what I found at the bottom of the was a beautiful leather-bound journal. And I open up the journal, and it's all written in German. So, of course, I'm really curious about it at this point in time. And I had a friend of mine, because I teach at a local Boston college, had a friend of mine translate it. And he came to me the very next day, and he's like, Chris, do you have any idea what this is? He's like, this is the 1938 Nazi expedition to Antarctica. He's like, this is their notes. This is their step-by-step expedition, and they jotted down everything. And he also said, he says, Chris, look at it. And he flipped through it, and he's showing me all the margins. And the Allies had notes in the margins, including Admiral Byrd. And there were notes from Admiral Byrd, who did Operation High Jump in 1946 for the United States, searching for an ancient alien civilization in Antarctica. And what were they doing? They were actually at the German base. And so, this sparked this whole... just wow! I got to find out more stuff. I mean, as a writer and a reader, research is our thing, and so I just started to do more and more research because ancient aliens is really a topic of mine and a great interest of mine. So the more that I delved into this, the more I found that there is just so much information, so many things that are hidden from the public. And I used my military background to continue to dig deeper. And it was just amazing what I was able to find. So that started the whole idea. What if a young man actually was given a journal by his grandfather, and he comes and he finds out that this journal is a magical journal, that it is a key to opening up the very gates of this ancient alien civilization that's hidden right underneath our very nose in Antarctica.
I love that concept. I really do. And I really think it's great that you're able to connect with your grandfather through this kind of like shared history. Now, your last book series prior to this one was The Gridiron Conspiracy, which is a sports-related thriller and drama. With Haven, you've got a sort of fantasy, bit of sci-fi series. Was it at all a challenge to shift from one genre to another?
It was challenging from the standpoint of, when I did Gridiron Conspiracy, it was really an autobiographical type of mystery thriller, but it was really based on my own personal, not struggle, but just trying to get out to other people that, as a professional athlete, these are different things that can happen to you as a result of, continued and multiple contusions to the head. It happened to be a situation that was in the news at the time, and a lot of us that had played professional football were dealing with multiple issues health-wise as a result of repeated blows to the head and concussions. So I thought, instead of just kind of making a medical journal, what if I was able to take it in a vein that I really enjoy, which is sci-fi and mystery? So that took on a life of its own and kind of just led right into this great mystery and being able to include all these items that were actually happening in the news at the time, and still continues to be a major bone of contention for a lot of people in not just football, but in just professional sports in general, dealing with multiple concussions. So then the challenge was to kind of switch gears to a more magical, a more story-based project, and that's really what this is. Even though there is a lot of research and a lot of reality behind it, again, I thought instead of approaching it as just strictly a research project, I thought that the best way to approach it would be to have it as a fantasy.
Mm-hmm. Now, I know that fantasy series can sometimes take a long time to just put the world together. That's a huge part of it, is building the creatures and the places and the languages in some cases. Did you have to spend a lot of time doing that before you could actually write the book?
I did. I actually had to sit down, and with all my research, I literally laid it out on the table. And I was looking at all the different concepts and all the different subjects that I had studied myself. And I'm trying to figure out how I want to break it up and how I want to put it into a story. And there's just so much that you can really delve into with this whole ancient aliens concept. And so what I chose to do is so many people are looking for the aliens out in outer space. My premise is that the aliens have always been here. They've never left. And so I wanted to approach it that way. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to kind of take it in a different direction than most people do, fantasy-wise. And I wanted to include a lot of the ancient kingdoms that we have discovered, as we are moving throughout our own history. And of course, we have all these questions about all these ancient realms that have, we think have long since disappeared. So what I did is I included those realms. They haven't really disappeared. They're, again, just like the aliens, they're underneath our very nose right now, happening at this point in time. So what I do is I include the ancient aliens along with all the ancient realms that have long, thought disappeared, like the Atlanteans, the Dark Elves in the Dark Kingdom, the upcoming book. So we're getting into dwarves and dark elves. But these kingdoms, as we study dwarves and elves, a lot of these kingdoms supposedly are underground anyway. So then when we get into different situations, like a lot of people have, in the news have discovered that, everybody wants to say that the earth is not hollow. And I don't subscribe to the hollow earth theory. However, Jules Verne wrote about this a long time ago, and he wrote about different pockets and different places underneath the earth where life could actually happen, and it could be teeming with life. We just haven't found it as of yet. But every single day, there are new ancient civilizations that have been found that go way beyond anything we thought existed at the time. They just came out a couple of weeks ago. They found a civilization that is 10,000 years older than than any human being was supposed to be here on this planet. So, you sit there and you go, wait a minute, how do you explain that? That all, these archaeologists keep trying to tell us where our timeline as human beings are, but that timeline continues to move.
Wow. So you mentioned a lot about ancient aliens. This, of course, is like a well-known TV show where they talk about, how like alien civilizations interacted with ours and kind of influenced our development. Do you subscribe to that theory?
I very much do, because as I was beginning to do my research for the books, and then having the Nazi journal in my hand and, really going through it and looking at the Allied notes and, getting into all of that, I started to study how, the Nazis were so interested in Antarctica. As a matter of fact, even today, the Germans still have the largest base in Antarctica. It's huge. They own over 50% of the Antarctic continent. That's how huge their base is. And right now, there's 48 other military bases surrounding this German base. Now, everybody always tells you that the scientists are in Antarctica, but that's not true. It's not just the scientists that are there. They have 52 working military bases there. It's amazing what's actually going on down there. And if you watch Google Earth for any length of time, every few months somebody will take a picture overhead of Antarctica, and there's a humongous hole right in the middle of it that goes right into Antarctica, which was described by Admiral Byrd in 1946. Now, an hour later, that picture will be taken down. Anything that, any photographs that come from the aerial photographs in Google Earth, as soon as they're up, they're almost automatically taken right down again.
Let's talk about the plot of this series. So you're now in the third volume. What's the overall plot of the story?
Peter Sullivan, who is the young man that attains the journal from his grandfather when his grandfather passes away, his grandfather had taught him throughout his lifetime to do different puzzles. He had him learn different languages. He really talked to him about the cosmos and about constellations and about space travel and all these different things. And of course, as a young man, he always was, wanted to be an astronaut. And when his grandfather passed away and he started to study the journal, he actually finds out that there is a message hidden in the journal only for him. And he unlocks the message, and when he does that, he unlocks his own magic, because he is a relative of an ancient alien royal, he's of royal blood of an old ancient alien civilization, and he's been hidden by his grandfather so that the reptilian people who also live underneath the earth cannot find him. But when his grandfather passes away, his magic that had been protecting the young man is now gone. So the reptilians can find him. They are going after him. One of the young ladies who is in the ancient alien civilization called the Zorillians attempts to contact him and tries to help him. And he has to find his way to Antarctica, and he has to get through Heaven's Gate to help not only the human race, but to help the Zorillians avoid destruction at the hands of the reptilians. And that really gets going in Book 2, Rise, where the reptilians and the Zorillians really fight for not only control of the underworld, but the control of the planet Earth itself. So that leads us to the third installment, where Dark Kingdom is about a normal teenager, Peter Sullivan, who finds out that he is anything but ordinary. When he's sent into a vortex to a dark world by an evil mage. He must find his way back to save his love and his planet.
Not too much of a challenge, is it?
No.
Boy, man, Peter must have been kind of like ticked when he realized, so my grandpa gave me this old book, and I'm an alien. Okay, I have questions.
Well, yeah, as a teenager, I mean, you have enough to deal with as it is. And, of course, you're just trying to be a normal, everyday teenager and try and get through school. And that's exactly what this young man is doing. He's a very unassuming young man. He's a very astute student. And, he has a friend of his, Jake Andrews. And Jake Andrews is the typical, well-built, smart jock. He comes from a military background. He seems to have it all put together, but yet he's the nicest young man that you'd ever want to meet. And he really takes Peter under his wing and protects him. And he actually ends up being Peter's protector throughout this whole thing. He becomes his knight and his protector.
How does Peter handle this burden? Realizing all these things about himself, all these things that he didn't know existed, and being just drawn into this world.
Well, you would think that as someone who, he had to think about every day about, okay, what kind of clothes am I going to wear so that I don't get beat up when I get to high school? And now all of a sudden he's considered a king of the cosmos. He is actually anointed by a deity called Mother Earth, and she anoints him as king of the cosmos because of his ancient royal blood. And since he was hidden by his grandfather, no one knew he existed. And now all of a sudden, here he is, and he finds this out, and he's being helped by this other young lady who is a Zorillian. She's also of royal blood, and they come together, and they are anointed king and queen of the cosmos. So his whole thing is, not only is he dealing with that, but he also has to deal with this beautiful young lady who seems to be joined at the hip with him, through not just, he thinks that she's a very lovely lady. It seems as though the universe is trying to put these two together and say, listen, this is the pairing of, the cosmos here. This is not anything that's, this is fate. This is destiny. And so he's got that on top of everything else. But his training from his grandfather, learning how to solve problems, to solve puzzles, it really comes out. And almost every problem that is put in front of him, it's almost as though his grandfather is sitting on his shoulder whispering, do you remember this problem I gave you? Do you remember this puzzle I gave you? And all of a sudden, he's not really thinking about it. He's just, okay, this is how I approach it. This is how I solve it. And, he continues to do that, and he continues to strengthen his bonds with the people around him because his grandfather let him become a normal young man. He let him grow up as a humble, very unassuming young man. And because of that, he has a great humanity to him. So now, all of a sudden, when all these issues and these problems arise, it's not so overwhelming to him because his grandfather, without even him knowing it, has trained him for this very thing.
So this is a character, though, who's going to be thinking his way through his obstacles. He's not the fighter type.
Well, he is a thinker type until he meets his ancestor, which was a former king in the form of a wraith. And the wraith, who is the king, trains him in the arts of swordplay, in the arts of fighting, in just not only the physical but the mental capacity to do so, because he knows that the young man is going to have to fight his way to not only save the Zorillians but save the human people. But he also knows that the more important thing is his mind. But he's going to need both. in order to save humanity and save others, because at this time, the reptilian people are the ultimate scourge of the universe. Their whole reason for being is nothing but destruction of others.
Did you have to plan this book series out? Did you have to outline how it was going to go? Because it sounds like you've created a fairly complicated plot here, or did you just wing it?
I added it step by step because once he found out that he could use what is called earth magic, he could manipulate the Earth's magnetic fields. One of the things that ancient alien theorists have been studying is the fact that around the world there are what's called ley lines, and all around the world it's really a grid of magnetic energy that surrounds the Earth. So what I did is I took that instead of, because normally when you see a fantasy story, it's okay, it's just magic and poof, things happen. So I wanted to actually add a science to it. And if you really study magnetic fields, you can manipulate magnetic fields, whether it's levitation or whether it's actually, using that as an energy form, then you can do that. Science can do it right now, and they can, so it's not something that's really out of the realm of possibility. And not only that, because of the magnetic fields, we can also manipulate electricity and electrical fields too. So I include that in his earth magic. So he's able to use magic, but it's science-based magic.
What would you say was the most fun part about writing this, especially because with a fantasy or sci-fi story, it's really the sky's the limit. There's no actual rules to follow except the ones that you make up.
Well, that's the fun part of writing a fantasy. As you know, my friend Mike Squattrito, when he's writing his fantasies, he just lets the story go. He lets it just flow and continue until he feels that, I want to break from this story and go into the next one. But the great part about fantasy is the story can really take you in so many places that it doesn't necessarily have to be like 100,000 word book. It could be, let's say, 600 pages, and you don't even know that you're reading 600 pages because you are so into the characters, you are so into the story, you have become invested in the world, as you were talking about. When we build worlds, we have to do that as authors. We have to make sure that you are invested as a reader in the world that we are creating. So if you create a world that people are interested in and become invested in, then you're reading and it takes you, you can picture yourself in the story. And that's what I hope to accomplish, is that people will read it and picture themselves as either one of the characters or just being able to put themselves in the story, in the time frame, and things that are happening around their, themselves in their own world.
Now, I know, of course, a big part of this is getting feedback, whether it's from an editor or from a group of beta readers or from your fellow writers. So I'm curious, in that whole process, did you wind up having to make any serious changes to the story?
Part of being an indie author is you have to really do everything yourself. And when I first started the Gridiron trilogy, it was, okay, I just want to get this story out. I want to share it with so many people. And the whole process behind, getting the manuscript together and editing it and putting it together and have other people reading it and then finally publishing it, I learned so much with that trilogy that now with each subsequent book, I really craft it a lot differently each time now. Like, I really go back in and I really look at things. Do I actually need that? Does that really fit in there? So I definitely have honed my craft at this point, being seven books into my career. And the Haven series is going to be a 10-book series. So, you have to kind of, throw new things at the readers, but at the same time, you want to keep that storyline going so that you don't lose too much of, why it was successful, why people read the first 2 books or the first 3 books. You want to be able to give them something else to kind of digest and think about, but you also want to stay true to the story because it's a lengthy series.
10 books, yes, that's a very lengthy series, sir. When you started out with the Haven series, you just say, okay, this is going to be a 10-booker.
Many of the fantasy series and like the authors that are around today, like Terry Brooks and the Shannara series and things like that. It's the post-apocalyptic stuff. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to kind of start before any of that happened, and I wanted to pose the question: what happens to get to that point? And right when we're at the precipice of that apocalyptic event, can we save ourselves? Do we save ourselves? And then where do we go from there? So when I was studying all the ancient alien research and then looking at it and then, trying to think about how the ancient civilizations, how I could plug them in, I decided that each book is going to have their own ancient civilization as a part of this storyline. And each ancient civilization is going to help to bring humanity from the brink, so to speak.
I want to talk next about publishing during the pandemic. Of course, this has been a challenging year for artists of all kinds, but in particular, I think for authors because they can't do a lot of the things they would normally do. So my question to you is, publishing now, how do you plan a release? What do you do to tell people that, hey, this book's out there?
Well, for me, it's a matter of technology because, instead of being in person, which is really my forte, is actually, face-to-face sales. Because, when I can sit there and I can talk to somebody about this and, they can read my face, they can see how excited I am about this, then all of a sudden they want to grab a copy, they want to read it, they want to give me feedback. And that's amazing, but we've had to kind of reinvent ourselves as authors and really kind of focus on the technology aspect. And like you and I are doing right now, Skype or Zoom or Meet. And, we've had to do virtual events rather than, face-to-face events. I mean, I am the king of conventions, love to go to conventions. But during the pandemic, I was able to kind of switch gears, and I just got done actually doing the West Coast Writers Conference out in L.A., even though we didn't actually have to go to L.A., and do different panels, and I actually was able to pitch my books to several agents because that's where I am at this point in my career. I love doing the indie and publishing it myself, but at this point in time, I feel that I know enough about the business that I really want to approach it, and I want to take it to the next level and, get that agent and really go, full bore to a professional publisher. So then I just want to go to that next level as an author.
How do you think an agent can help you? As you mentioned, you already have a pretty strong presence, made your books sell well, you go to cons, I've seen you just clear your table off completely. How does an agent make that better?
Well, when you get to the point where, the great part about being an indie author is you have control over everything. But even though, I have a presence online and I have good social media and, I have a lot of followers, and social media has really changed over the last couple of years, and people really are not looking at social media right now as something that's going to sell them something. So it really has changed, whereas, once upon a time we could use ads and we could use things to kind of market and we would be able to sell. Even Goodreads right now is trying to kind of rebuild themselves as to be able to market books to other folks. So even like them, I'm kind of trying to reinvent myself that way. But still, the large publishing houses really have the marketing budget, and they still have the marketing muscle to be able to get your books into, hundreds of thousands of people instead of thousands of people. And that's really what I need to do. I need to get my story in the hands of hundreds of thousands of people.
I get you. Do you think that's something that you can achieve on your own, or is that just a point where you really do need that marketing army that a publisher can bring to the table?
Over the last 5 years, I've sold very well. As an indie author, if you look at the numbers and everything, you go, okay, he's done pretty well. But I look at it this way: if I have done that well, and I don't have that marketing guru or that publicist to kind of really get me out there, just imagine what I could do with a team of people to help me out. Because like I said in one of my pitches, listen, nobody's going to outwork me. I'm going to work as hard as anybody's ever worked to do this. And as an indie author, you have to do that. You have to outwork people. So in my pitch, that was part of it. Because, listen, you're not only, as an agent, if you pick me up, you're not only getting an author who's authored 7 books and, illustrated others and helped other people write books. You're getting someone who has sold well on his own. And if you make me a part of your team, then there's no doubt in my mind that these books can be bestsellers. There's no doubt in my mind.
You mentioned cons, and certainly whenever I see you at cons, you have this great presence that can draw people in. But were you always like that, or did it take time to kind of create your con presence?
No, I was always like that because, I believe in what I do. And even when I was in the military, I was always the person that they stuck up in front of the microphone and said, you're going to lead the briefing today. You're going to tell all these people what's happening today. And of course, I'm a young airman in the Air Force, and I'm like, yes, sir, okay, I'll go out in front of the media and speak to these people and tell them what's happening, here in Iraq during the Gulf War. And they're like, okay, sure, I'm 19 years old, I can go out there and do this. But I've always had that type of presence where public speaking and getting out in front of people, it has never bothered me at all. I really enjoy it. As an artist and as a creator, I look at it this way, if nobody knows about your stuff, then it's not gonna go anywhere. You got to let people know what's going on. You got to share it with them, because nobody, I see so many authors that just sit there at cons and just people walking by, and they just think that magically people are going to come up to them and buy their books, and that's not going to happen. And even my friend Ben Goldsmith, he does that all the time. He says, hey, come here. I got a great story for you. Come here and check this out. And then all of a sudden, boom, they're buying his book in 2 seconds because he took 2 minutes to kind of talk to them personally. And you do. When you go to the conventions, you learn that from other people. And each time I do an interview like with you, I learn a lot from you. I learn a lot from the people that are interviewing me. And, I learn how to maintain that presence and continue to get people interested in what I do. Because my hope is maybe if it doesn't happen for me, maybe I can help somebody else, and maybe it'll happen for them.
One thing you mentioned that really caught me was the pitch. Like you said, some folks go to these things, they sit behind their desk, and they don't really do much, so they don't get much. But at the same time, you can't be in their face, because you can't be like, hey, buy this book, shove it in their face, because they're just going to walk away. What to you is the right balance of maybe casual but also aggressive?
What I find is I see a lot of people who kind of see the covers and it catches their eye. And as soon as I see them, I'm like, yeah, come check it out. Yeah, take a look. Here, I'll pick it up. I'll hand it to them. And, I might just give them a few, lines about the book, and then they're like, they kind of pique their interest, and then all of a sudden you have a nice conversation about reading. You have a nice conversation about what they are interested in, and before you know it, they're buying all 3 books instead of just one. So it's really just about starting a nice conversation with people about reading. And, sure, you're sneaking your pitch in there, but like you said, it's not in your face. Say, hey, you got to buy my books. It's, that's not ever going to work.
That happened to me at a Comic-Con. I won't say who the person is. I don't want to name bash here, but the guy was very in my face. He was like, I was kind of checking out his comics. He's like, okay, these 2, $5. I'm like, nah, man, I'm just looking. He's like, these 3, $7. I'm like, dude, I'm just looking. And then he's like, you know what? All 4 of these, $12. And I was like, dude, what part of I'm looking is not sinking in? No, thank you.
Yeah, so what you learn that this is probably somebody who is new, and they really haven't been dealing with the public for long. And of course, being a new, the creator, what is in their mind? I got to sell. I got to sell things. But like you said, that automatically turns people off, and then they won't go back to that author. If you see him at a con from now on, you're probably not going to go to see him.
I would actually probably go out of my way to avoid him, because I know what I'm walking into, and I don't want that. Like, I want to be given time to look. I want to be given time to breathe it in, to check things out. I don't want someone standing over my shoulder saying, okay, that's $5, that's $7. Like,
yeah, and I think a lot of people take it personally, too, when people don't buy your things. And I don't do that. I look at it like this. There's a gazillion books out there. Everybody's got different tastes. Everybody likes different styles. Everybody likes different types of authors. So you know what? Hopefully, if they buy it and they like it and they enjoy it, then they'll tell their friends, and then it becomes this big thing. And like I said, it's for me right now, it's really a matter of getting the books into the right person's hands, because I just feel as a storyteller that I have so much to share with people, and I've been so blessed to be able to share so much right now. But I think it's time that, again, we get these books in more people's hands and really share the story with as many people as possible.
Okay. Now, it looks like this is going to be the year the cons return. The Granite State Comic-Con has officially announced that they are coming back in September. Rhode Island Comic-Con is proceeding forward with their November convention. Will you be going, or are you going to kind of hold off until maybe next year?
Well, Rhode Island Comic-Con is my hometown con, so I probably will attend that. But, I found that, unfortunately, what happens is Artist Alley is stuck in the middle, and people just walk around on the outside of the convention center. They don't actually go into Artist Alley. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go back to where I was in the Dunk. I went to the Dunkin' Donuts Center, and I sold like 500 books there. So I'm going to go back out to the Dunkin' Donuts Center, where there's thousands and thousands of people milling around. So I do like the Rhode Island Comic Con. Again, it's my hometown con. I really love doing New York Comic Con. That was amazing. They did a really awesome thing for Artist Alley. They actually kept it open an hour after the Comic-Con closed. So then everybody who still wanted to see stuff would all come to Artist Alley, and we sold gazillions just because they kept Artist Alley open an hour later. Now, listen, Rhode Island Comic-Con could probably do the same thing and help us out as creators. That would be a pretty cool thing to do. So that was amazing. I would love to get out to San Diego again. I loved doing San Diego, and I really want to get out to Emerald, out in Seattle. So, hopefully once this stuff opens up again, what I'm going to actually do this summer, because there's so much uncertainty, I'm going to do a lot of wineries and breweries and stuff like that, because what I've found is nice small venues like that, I sell out every time, because I'm the only game in town. I don't have to fight with other authors. And, I found, especially at wineries, people who love wine love to read. So, I've been to those venues and done extremely well. I'll continue to do signings at bookstores and stuff like that because, I think it's important to, help out those bookstores and those small venues because it's important. We need to keep those venues alive. And, what you see is so many of the small businesses going out of business right now. It's really sad. We got to do a little more to help out our small businesses.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I myself am definitely looking forward to the cons coming back because for me, it's an opportunity to meet potential guests for the show because a lot of writers will be out there, comic creators, cosplayers, and not having done any of these things, obviously, for the past year, I've definitely noticed a gap. Has this year been tough for you in terms of sales? Have you been able to kind of make up for what you're losing by not going to the cons?
No, it's definitely hit the purse strings. There's no two ways about that. But what we were able to do, instead of really worrying about how much money I was actually losing, it allowed me to focus on creating. And I kind of did. I threw myself into creating. I finished the third book, Dark Kingdom. I've written half the next book, the fourth book, which is should be ready by at least I'm saying maybe December. So I wrote that. I actually started the fourth book in the Gridiron Conspiracy because so many people had loved the character of Dr. Chase. So I'm actually working on that too. I did the screenplays for the Gridiron trilogy. So those are actually off in a producer's desk right now. I'm just waiting to see if we can get funding for the movies. So I was working on that, did a ton of illustrations, worked on 2 children's books. So yeah, this was the year of really focusing on, what I do best, which is creating things.
That's good. That's really good. Well, Chris, as always, a pleasure talking to you. It's great to see that you've been able to get something out of what has been a challenging year for a lot of folks. But before we go, where can folks go if they want to learn more about you and check out your work?
The easiest place is at cpaniccia.com. That's CPANICCIA.com. That's the easiest way because then you can see all the books. You can see my photography. You can see my illustrations. You can email me. You can ask any questions. That's the easiest way to get in touch with me or just to see my things in general.
All right. Well, Chris, once again, great talking to you, and I will probably see you at the next con.
I'm looking forward to it, Max. As always, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with me.
Hi, this is singer Kate Eppers, and you're listening to Citywide Blackout.
Okay, folks, it's break time. Kick back, relax, and enjoy a new single from the John Powhida International Airport, Michael, 3 o'clock. And when we come back, I'm talking to Zola for her new single, Not Like Other Girls. This song looks at standing up in the face of a bullying friend, and Zola shares what led this to be her theme.
I must admit I was a fan ever since I saw your band in '85. That college crowd was so unkind, didn't let it break your stride, and you blew my mind. You told that girl you could suck on this REM. We'll be out in a second. Super California fragile diva, what goes on inside your head? Psycho I dropped a couple names, you and I might play a game. But you turned me down. That's a shame, cause I dig your records, like the one with the lace got nerves. Super California fragile diva, what goes on inside your head? Psychotic dandelion might go through your pockets, time for I'm gonna hop a plane, bring you something mid-century modern. Boy, I look in every window. We all know about your fate. We all know about your Presidente. You've always been a star fucker. Super California fragile diva, what goes on inside your head? Psychotic dandelion might go through your pockets, time for bed. Super California fragile diva, what goes on inside your head? Psychotic dandelion might go through your pockets, time for bed.
I'm now talking to Boston-based musician Zola. She has a brand new single called Not Like Other Girls. And I think if you've ever had to deal with any kind of bullying in your youth, you're going to relate to this song, which is Everyone. Zola, welcome to the show. It's great to talk to you.
It's great to talk to you.
I have a million questions about this song because, like, listening to it, I was like, wow, this is my entire high school in one track.
I am both glad and sorry that you relate to it.
I think every teenager does, or most do at least, you know?
Yeah, I mean, especially now.
Now it's gotten so worse. So this one is all about basically standing up in the face of a bullying or gaslighting friend. And that friend is in, like, quotation marks, because
definitely.
you ain't a friend no more.
No.
But it's kind of interesting. The take on it, from what I got, was almost like you pitying this person because their own life is such this, like, shallow, empty thing. I'm curious why you wanted to go with that take.
I think instead of being strictly sad or strictly angry, it's easier and more healthy to be a mix of it. I mean, ideally you wouldn't be angry or sad at all, but one of the reasons that I went that route is I came up with the title of the song before I came up with any of the lyrics or anything. And the title is Not Like Other Girls. And basically my thinking behind that was, I don't know if you've heard of this, but it's a trope in the media, in real life as well. The whole Not Like Other Girls thing. There are girls who think that they're superior or better than everybody else because they like certain things or don't like certain things. And I was kind of taking that saying and be like, you're not like other girls, you're worse. And I definitely, like, do pity this person and feel bad. I think it's important to try to put yourself in someone else's shoes and empathize with them to a certain degree.
But at the same time, don't let them like
Yeah.
forget about it.
Yeah, definitely not. I mean, when I write songs, I like to think of them as things that I feel, or most of the time, to be honest, things I wish I said, things I never said. I never really had a confrontation with this person, and I took the high road and just moved on. But part of me wanted that closure and wanted to be able to express my feelings, so I wrote the song.
When it was done, was this like catharsis by like a proxy for you? Getting that closure without directly getting the closure. Like you said, you wish you had said something, you didn't get to say it, and now you're like getting to say it.
I definitely put time and space between the relationship, so I had time to think about it. It's something I do think about a lot, to be honest, because it was like a pretty significant relationship in my life, friendship in my life. Really just coming back to it at any time and writing about it was helpful. It did definitely make me feel better, because it's awesome to take a really terrible experience and turn it into this kick-ass song that you're proud of and can like bop your head to, and other people are singing along, and it's just a great feeling. There's nothing better than it, I think.
And it's a very kick-ass song. I love like the blending of styles with like the rock and the piano and the synth, and listening to some of like other. Well, you're welcome. But my question to you is: did these all kind of come into your life musically at the same time, or did you kind of add to your skill set as you went along?
Oh, for sure. Like, my style is definitely influenced by what I listened to growing up, and that was influenced by what my parents listened to growing up. So I grew up with Joni Mitchell, the Red Hot Chili Peppers, Outkast, like a very diverse palette. Eventually, I mean, I went through my top 40 phase where I only listened to top 40, but quickly, I'm so glad I got past that. Now, I really enjoy John Bellion. I would consider him one of my biggest inspirations. And a big part of that is how he blends genres and how he kind of like defies genres. So that's important to me. So I definitely can draw inspiration from hip hop, rock, and pop. So I would say that's kind of like a blend of what I am. And that's definitely been like picked from each section of my life growing up.
Very cool. I also want to ask about like song topics. You write music that is very relatable. So I'm curious as to the process of deciding what it is you're going to write about.
I don't. There is no process. I just write about it. There's a process between what I release and what I don't, for sure. Like, if it's bad, I won't release it. I mean, that's pretty straightforward. And also, if it's too personal, which I tried to make this song not too personal, not to seem like I was attacking this specific person, because I'm sure if they heard it, they would know it's about them. But it's good that you think it's relatable, because I had to take a look at the song and be like, how can I make this all encompassing and have a better meaning than just being vengeful, you know?
The thing is, I don't think the song sounds vengeful. I think it sounds like you said, like you want to make it about this person, but not about this specific person. How do you get to that point? How do you make this about what you went through, but then also broadening it?
When I first started writing songs, it was very much a sort of therapy for me. It was just for me. And then when I released the music and heard that people were related to it, I was kind of shocked. I was like, huh? I was like, what do you mean? That wasn't something I was expecting. Like, I make music for me. And to find out that other people feel the same way about my music that I feel about other people's music, you know, because as an artist, I also consume a ton of music. So that was just a really weird feeling. And once I kind of realized that, I definitely tried to take a look at each song and kind of survey what I thought people's responses would be to it. Not necessarily in like an overthinking way, but sort of a how would this be interpreted. So yeah, I would say that I don't do that while I'm writing. I don't try to make it relatable on purpose necessarily, because I feel like if you think too much about writing, you'll just hit a block. You kind of just got to get it out of there, stream of consciousness, and you don't try to make it anything, because that kind of jeopardizes the art.
I get you. So like don't like overthink it. Don't like overanalyze it, what it's about, who it's for.
Just don't try to be anything. Don't try to make it be anything. Just make it.
Okay.
Or at least that's the way it works for me.
Okay. And everyone has their own like process. There's no like one set of guidelines. Do people ever ask you to make songs about like certain things?
My grandma definitely has asked me. She says, "Zola, why don't you write happy songs?" And I was like, oh shoot, like I didn't really know how to answer it at the time, but I thought about it. And kind of circling back to that, music is a coping mechanism and therapy for me. When I'm in a good mood and having a good moment, I want to live it. I want to be in that moment and savor it. But when I'm sad or I'm angry, I need to work through it, and I want to not feel that way and not be in that moment. So that's the stuff that I tend to write about more. So it's definitely not a conscious thing at all, but I've made what I like to call deceivingly upbeat songs. So I feel like that's kind of a compromise and a happy medium. And sometimes she can't tell, which is good. But nobody like has really asked me specifically to write about something. My mom suggests things to me, and she has some good suggestions. So sometimes I do take them.
Now, is music at all like a family thing?
No offense, Mom, love you. But it's a family thing in the fact that both of my parents are really passionate about music. My mom, Lisa, she has a beautiful voice, and she sang to me as a kid. But it's not like that's her profession or anything. And my other mom, Tracy, I have two moms, by the way, she was a professional photographer. So she did a lot of press photos and concerts. So I remember seeing a photo that she took of the band Delight. I don't know if you remember them. They were like from the 80s. And I don't know why I say I don't know if you remember them, because I wasn't even alive. But I saw that and I was like, oh, that's so cool. So they've definitely been influenced by music, but I wouldn't say it like runs in the family or anything. And actually, my grandfather, he sang in like a barbershop quartet, like way back when. I found a CD and I was like, no way.
That's so cool.
It was pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely. So what is next for you? Do you have like new releases planned?
I do. I have a lot planned. I mean, all I have now is time, so I better put it to good use. Yeah, I've been writing a lot. I started recording an album last February with my producer, The Archetype, at the Bridge Sound and Stage, which is in Cambridge. They're totally dope. Like, if you do music and stuff, you should definitely go there. They're amazing. But yeah, I've been working on it for over a year now. And it has about, I would say like 11 plus songs, because it keeps growing. I need to cut it off at some point, but let's just say I have a lot in the vault, and we are aiming to do, like a new song every 2 months or less. So definitely keep an eye out for that. I don't know how much I can say, but I'm very excited for it. I'll just say that. And the next single is very different tonally, but in a good way, I would say.
And for the folks at home, you can go to the official Zola, ZOLA.com, find all the information, follow her socials, check out her music on the various streaming platforms, and definitely looking forward to talking again sometime.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, folks, that brings this episode to a close. You can follow the show on Facebook under Citywide Blackout and Twitter and Instagram under Citywide Max. Listen to the show on Podbean, Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, and every Saturday at 10 p.m. on Boston Free Radio. To close things out, I've got Zola's new single, Not Like Other Girls. I really dug the style, and the message is a powerful one. As always, keep those ears open.
She was a fake bitch, wanted to be famous. Don't know what I saw in you. She didn't love herself, so everybody else had to. I feel sad for you. She reeked of privilege and Urban Outfitters perfume. You're not like other girls, honey. You're worse. Ba-da-da-da-da-da, ba-da-da-da-da-da, ba-da-da-da-da-da. Ba-da-da-da-da-da, ba-da-da-da-da-da. She was a sadist, wanted me to take it. Don't know why I stood by you. She didn't love herself and made me feel like I had to. I feel bad for you. The type of girl that wanted it's easy to hate. Being drunk and high's your only personality trait. Yeah, you're so quirky, the way that you hurt me. So fucking thirsty, I ain't offering a drink, cause you're white. Just apart, cut yourself, told me that I was the blade and the scar. I know what you are. You're worse.